Hi there, welcome to QA Box Let's Test. If you have not already subscribed to this channel, kindly do so, and if you like the video, give them the thumbs up.
Right. So in this video, we are going to talk about date and date operations. So what is date in JavaScript? So it represents a point in time. Okay. And in this video, we are going to cover ways to create date object, the getters and setters, and we'll also talk about formats. When you're working into real projects, most of the time you would go for external libraries like Moment.js, but in some cases, this native date object would be good enough to serve your purpose. So this video will cover the native date object in JavaScript. Okay, so let's start. There are four ways, like I mentioned. So the first one is, let us create a variable. Let's give it a name D, and we are going to use the keyword new. Since date is a class, so we are going to create an object of the class. So if we do so, this is the most simplest way of creating a date object. And now if we check, so you could see the value. So today is August 24, 2020. It's a Monday, and this is the current time. And what you see after that is the time zone of this local machine. Okay. The other way to create the object is, we can say new, again date, and we can pass the individual parts of the date object, like let's pass year, followed by month, followed by day, hour, minute, second, and you can also pass millisecond, but that's good enough. So this date represents Wednesday, October 23, 2019, 11 a.m., 34 minutes 56 seconds, and again this represents the local time zone of this machine. The other way is new date, and we can pass the Unix epoch, or you can also say it like, a date is fundamentally represented or specified as the number of milliseconds that have been elapsed since midnight of January 1, 1970 UTC. So you can pass those milliseconds. All right. So let us pass something like, okay. So now you could see that this represents May 30th, 2452, and this is the time. So that's another way we can create the date object. And the last one is, we provide the date string, and it is mentioned on this MDN web docs date page that do not use this method because it may not work in some browsers. All right, so just a disclaimer. So we can do something like new date, and we can pass a date object. So this is a string representation of ISO format, ISO 86, right? uh, and if you hit, so this represents Monday, September 23, 2019, and so on. All right, so this is how you can create date object in JavaScript. Now let's talk about the getters and setters. So if you want to fetch the individual component from this date object, for example, so we have saved the date in D. All right, so let's do D dot, we can have get full year. That's a method. Hit enter. All right, you can also go for get month. Right, hit enter. It gives you 7, though it's August, so it, the months start with index 0, so which means that at index 7 we have August. All right, so there are more. If you do get, you see all these methods are here. So we have covered get full year, we have covered, what else we covered? We have covered month. So now we can cover get date. Similarly, we have get hours. Okay, so that's hours. Then we have get seconds, d dot get seconds, and so on. Okay, so before we move on, just one more thing. Let's read this. It is important to keep in mind that while the time value at the heart of the date object is UTC, so what we have done here in all these four methods, it represents still the UTC. However, the basic method of fetch the date and time or its component all work in local host time zone, which in my case is Indian Standard Time. So all these things work into IST. So the UTC is being converted to your local time zone before it's being shown to you. Okay, so that's about the getters. Let's work on some of the setters. Again, very simple. Use the member access operator, right, and say set, and let's say let us set the full year to let's say 2002. Hit enter. All right, and now if we check, so the date is now changed, so it reads Saturday, August 24, 2002, right? Initially it was August 24, 2020. So this way we can change the year. You can do the same for d dot set month. Again, remember it starts with 0, so you can provide, let's say, 5, which is going to be then June. Okay, so if you hit enter, you get June. Let's say let's set the hours. Let us make it set hours, and let us make it 23. And if we check the date object now, so it is 2354. Okay, so that's how you can play with the getters and setters. Now if you want to get the data into UTC, right, this whatever methods that we have covered, be both getters and setters, they are returning the data in the form in your local time zone. But what if you want to get the data back in the form of UTC? Very simple. So you let's update it again to the current date. So that's our date object, and let's say dot get UTC, and now you have all those methods available to you. So in the UTC, right, and dot get UTC hour, and if we do so, we get 7 instead of getting 1 p.m. Okay, so same way you have methods available for set UTC. Okay, so you can set UTC here to, let's say, 2030, and now if you check your date object, so you get this. Okay, so these are your getters and setters in UTC. The last thing that we are going to cover is the formats. So let's check out some of the formats to ISO. If you want to convert your date object into this particular format, this is how we store data into database. All right, so at times we require to do that conversion. So in here you could see that this is your date, right? T separates a date with the time, and Z represent UTC. Okay, all right, so the other is to local locale string, and here what we can do is we can provide the locale in which we want to view this, and let's say English hyphen Australia. So this represents the time in Australian locale. Let's check it out for US. If we do so, so you could see there is a difference in the way date is written in Australia versus date is written or used in US. So this is all in small lower cases. This is in uppercase, and also this is the date and followed by the month and then the year. But in case of US, we first start with month followed by date and then year, right? So that's about to locale string. And one more method before we move on, so we can say let us stringify the date. So when you do the stringify of the date, you could see that this uses your ISO format, all right? And this is how you're going to get the data back. So these are some of the important instance level methods available to us in JavaScript. There are some static methods also available. So if we again go to Mozilla MDN website, and we can say that these are the static methods available to us. And here also there's a disclaimer for date.parse. Parsing of string with date.parse is strongly discouraged due to browser differences and inconsistency. But let's try one more. So you can say date, and so you're not using the new operator, means you are not creating the instance of this class. So date is a class, and these are the static methods then. So if you say date.now, okay, so you get those seconds that are being elapsed since January 1, 1970 UTC time, right? So you could see that, and then you have got the parse and date.utc. All right, so that is about date object and available methods. Thank you so much.